This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy, and another closing argument on deck. Suburban Madigan finance character assassins that dominating your airwaves and your mailboxes. All Madigan money, whether it's incumbent Democrats or Democrats challenging Republican incumbents, same rap, extreme, same silliness, accusing people and Republican candidates of wanting to cut, that are running for state legislative office, wanting to cut federal programs. The same okey doke, is that the phrase President Obama likes? Well, let me borrow it. The same okey doke that they run on suburban families every cycle. Why do they keep running it? Because it keeps working. Is it going to work tomorrow? Well, it's up to you and up to the quality of the campaigns run by suburban Republicans, including incumbent Mark Batinick, a Republican from Plainfield, who joins us now. Mark, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
So you've been subject to some rather unique character assassination, sort of a one-off commercial that's not being run against some of the other candidates. Your opposition to rape kit testing. Your opposition to rape kits for victims of sexual assault. That seems like an odd position for you to take. Perhaps you could provide some context.
Yes, well, it's tough to actually provide context, but here's the basis of their accusation. So if there's a 700-page bill that gets dropped on my desk with an hour to vote on it, that is a $7 billion out of whack budget, and you say, hey, this makes no sense. I can't vote for a budget that's $7 billion out of whack. They'll slide, page 257 out of it and say, oh, well, in this budget that was, $7 billion out of whack, this budget included funding for veterans' homes or funding for rape kit testing. So you must be against it. So that's literally the basis for their advertising, which is just absurd.
Of course it is. But the question is, do you think it's penetrating? I mean, how much feedback are you getting when you go door to door or go to community events about those ads and those accusations?
Well, what's unique about this is, had it been done, let's say, with a month to go in the election or even 2-3 weeks left to go in the election, you'd have a better idea of you have the ability to respond to it.
Right.
There's been close to $1 million spent against me the last 7 days of the election. It's kind of unprecedented spending for a state rep race. It's more typical of what would happen in a congressional race. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. We're gonna know Tuesday. To be frank, we're gonna know Tuesday to see if they pulled the wool over the eyes of voters one more time.
Well, how do you process this personally? Because it's so ridiculous, and we can see through what's really happening. But some people that don't study it, what? How do you explain it to them?
Well, I explained just how I did, how we process it in the household is we've watched a lot of Netflix the last couple of days.
Okay.
But we certainly have spoken to voters, and there's so much slander basically thrown out there that I think that people are turned off to it. The one thing that I've pushed for months, really years, is I've always pushed solutions. And when somebody throws some outrageous accusation like that the last week, I don't know if it has the same penetration ability that it might have otherwise had. So, like I said, we're going to find out Tuesday night for sure, but it doesn't seem to have the effect that maybe my opponent has wanted.
Yeah, I mean, the demonization and people kind of losing all sense of grounding. I mean, I wouldn't believe that ad, or I would certainly look into it if it was directed at a Democrat. I mean, if somebody is against making sure victims of sexual assault have get the rape kit, so they get the necessary evidence to pursue the criminal. I mean, it's just absurd. It's absurd on its face. Who would believe that straight away? But I guess there are so many people that want to believe the absolute worst in particular candidates with the particular letter next to their name that they'll consume anything. The interesting thing, in addition to what you said, Mark, is the funding level. So Madigan late last week dropped to $750,000 on the full rundown of suburban Democrats. You're talking about, because I know that the left hates money in politics. Mike Madigan, in addition to J.B. Pritzker sending all kinds of national records with north of $150 million of his own money spent, Mike Madigan is turning all these suburban races into $2 million state legislative races for a $70,000 job. I mean, it used to be statewide primaries for governor would be in the $2 million range. And now that's every state legislative race in the suburbs. And what does that say about why these races are so important to Madigan and his financiers, the trial lawyers and the public sector unions?
Yeah, I mean, they're doing everything they can to buy every little last seat, and it's really a game of distraction. You haven't seen a whole lot of policy out of these state rep Democrats. You haven't seen these state rep Democrats go on TV and say, here's how I'm going to lower property taxes. Here's how I'm going to deal with workers' compensation reform. Here's how we're going to be bringing jobs back. Here's how we're going to have a better education system across the board for everybody. They're not talking about how to solve the problems because they don't know how to solve the problems. What they're talking about is made up things because that's the only way they can win. They look at this as a thing like it's a football game. It's the Bears versus the Packers, and we're the Bears and there's the Packers, and we're going to do anything we can to win. And it shouldn't be about that. It should be about how do we make the state of Illinois better for its citizenry? And I can tell you, you're not seeing that from the other side. Now, I don't have a couple $1 million to spend on my campaign, but I've spent months holding a series of dinners throughout my district talking about solutions. I've made videos on how to solve the problems that are facing the state. And those are the things that should matter to the voters.
Okay, because we know property taxes are high across Illinois, but they're exceptionally high in the 97th district. So what can you do to try and help lower property taxes? What are you telling your constituents?
Yeah, there's things across the board, but this is one of the most egregious things. So we have nearly 700 separate downstate pension systems. Most states have 10. The problem with that is you have nearly 700 boards and administrators. That alone, those extra boards and administrators cost us $33 million a year in property tax revenue. But the most egregious part is because it's a bunch of small systems, they get a lower rate of return. Big systems have better managers. They have access to better investments. They make about 2 points more. There's 12 to 13 billion dollars invested in these small pension systems. You know, that's 240 to 260 million dollars a year we're losing because of the way we're set up. Not benefits level, but because of the way we're set up. So you add that together, that's $300 million a year we're losing in property tax revenue just because of the way we're organized. I mean, that's silliness. And when you look at things like workers' compensation reform, guess what? Local businesses or local municipalities have to pay workers' compensation insurance. If my school district had average workers' compensation costs, my school district would save about $500,000 a year. Once again, that's something that would go directly to property tax relief.
And interesting, suburban Democrats being financed by Madigan, a property tax appeals attorney, in case you didn't know, refuse even to oppose a proposed 1% of home value property tax increase in addition to what you're paying at present to try to pay down some of the unfunded pension liabilities over the next 30 years. So they're not only not doing some of the thinking about some of the savings that you're talking about, Mark, they're also withholding opposition to ratcheting up your property taxes significantly more. I mean, a $250,000 home, that would be $2,500 an additional increment over what you're paying now. And you know what happens in Illinois when a politician is unwilling to oppose a tax hike of any sort. That means it's coming.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I got to correct something I said. I said that Madigan Democrats aren't proposing any solutions. They are. They propose more money. It's always about more money, whether it's a progressive tax increase or the tax increase you mentioned. That's their solution. That's the way they look at the way they look at the world and the way they see it. So
how do you frame the choice for voters out your way in the Plainfield area, but also generally in the suburbs tomorrow?
In the suburbs, the choice is real simple. A vote for a Democratic state rep is a vote to expand and seal Mike Madigan's power. A vote for me in my race is a vote for somebody who looks at problems and tries to solve them. So you got a problem solver versus a Madigan disciple.
And also, just more evidence of Mark Batinick's good judgment. He is married to a Bennett Academy graduate.
Oh my! Now he is.
So that should seal it
for sure.
Yeah. All right, Mark Batinick.
In case anybody hadn't heard that on this radio station.
Oh no! Yeah, I've never known that about you.
Well, it's nice that you're married
makes good choices,
to
is
somebody who
what this
graduated
says.
from the best high school in the state. So you got Batinick's got a backstop at home in case he strays at all. He's got the wife. That's important.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. Thank you,
Mark Batinick, State Representative, Republican from Plainfield. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like